everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session of Communication in Education Technology. We have been dealing with what is educational media, what are the different purposes, different types and sources of educational media. We have also discussed about the importance of educational media and various characteristics of an educational media. Today in this session, we are going to discuss about graphic aids and one of the most commonly used graphic aids in almost every classroom till today and one of the most oldest graphic or a teaching aid that is used in education system. First, let us see what are graphic aids and then we will move on to the oldest graphic aids used in the education system. Now, what is a graphic aid? Or what are graphics? So the word graphic has been derived from a Greek word graphikos, which means visual representations on some surface that could be wall, canvas, computer screen, or a paper to illustrate something. So the term graphic has been derived from a Greek word graphikos. The meaning of the term graphikos is visual representation on some kind of surface, which could be wall, which could be paper, which could be canvas, or a computer screen. What is the purpose of graphicos here? What is the purpose of visual representation here? It is used in order to illustrate something or to also entertain people. Graphic aids are basically objects that are used in the education system. Okay, in the graphic aid, there can be visual representation of the idea or a concept that the teacher is dealing with on some kind of surface, which could be a wall, which could be a canvas, it could be a paper or a computer screen. The use of graphic aids helps in differentiating the information, giving the students greater access to the content, and helping the students in comprehension of a particular content. So graphic aids or any kind of audiovisual aids that are used in education is to make sure that the students gets a better understanding about the particular concept. Similarly, graphic aids are also used in order to differentiate the instructions and help students achieve greater comprehension of the particular content. Now, there are multiple graphic aids that can be used in the classroom today, which is used in order to help the students learn better as well as to motivate the students or the learners. The most commonly used graphic aids includes Blackboard, charts, graphs, posters, flashcards, flannel board or bulletin boards. So far, we have discussed about what does graphic means and what are graphic aids. We have also seen the most common graphic aids that are used in teaching and learning. As I said in the introduction, in this session today, we are going to discuss in detail about the oldest and the most common graphic aid used in the education system. Now, when I say this, you all already must have got an idea about what is the topic of today's discussion. We are going to discuss about the chalkboard or the blackboard. As we all know, a blackboard is a smooth, flat and a dark colored surface on which people can either write or draw something using a chalk stick. Now, Blackboard is one of the oldest as well as the most commonly used form of graphic aids in any education system even to this date. It is also one of the most simple visual aids used in the education system. Now, a blackboard is also called as a chalkboard. It is nothing but a dark colored, usually a black or a green colored flat smooth surface which is used by the teacher during the teaching learning process in order to write something or draw something and to illustrate a particular concept or a process. Now, as the term suggests and as we all are aware, to write on a blackboard or as the term suggests chalkboard, we need a chalk stick, right? So it is a dark colored flat smooth surface, usually black or green in color, which the teacher uses during the teaching learning process to write down something or to illustrate a particular concept using a chalk stick. Now, chalkboards are usually prepared using a thin and smooth sheet of stones or slates that are black in color or dark gray in color. So, the blackboard is either made out of a slate or a smooth stone, which is usually black in color or dark gray in color. However, as I said, it is usually made with a black color stone or a black color slate. In this era today, green color boards are becoming more famous because of the better visibility. So as we have said, a blackboard, as the term itself suggests, a board that is black in color is usually used in education. Nowadays, there are green boards as well. So green boards are becoming more famous because the viewers will be able to visualize what is written on the board more clearly than in a blackboard. Now, the chalkboard or a blackboard is not only considered as an audio-visual media, but it is also considered as a vehicle for various visual materials. So, as we know, in a blackboard, it is not something that is consistent. When we write something, we can also erase from the blackboard. So, there are various ways through which the teacher can use a blackboard, not just to write, but to draw and illustrate many different things, not just considered as a graphic aid, but also as a vehicle of teaching learning process. Now, Blackboard is something that we know from the very beginning of our education system, and it is used so much so in the system of education that it has now become a symbol of education. It is not just a material used in the education, but it has itself become a symbol of education in today's world. As we know, it is one of the oldest and the most common graphic aids that are used in the education system. Now, we all know that the blackboard is not having any kind of ready-made materials for the students or for the learners. It is the teacher who uses the blackboard and explains a particular concept to the student. So, teacher can use it in a variety of ways in order to make sure that the students understand the concept better. So, it does not have any kind of ready-made material. The teacher has to use the blackboard according to the concept or the session that is being dealt. We all know that Blackboard is a universally available material, but it is not just a universally available graphic aid or a material, but it is also one of the most valuable graphic aids or a teaching aid that is used. Now again, you all know that a chalkboard is placed facing the class, and it is usually sticked on to the wall, or it can also be hanged on a frame that is available on the wall. So the blackboard is always facing the class. There is always a ledge on the end of the blackboard to keep the chalk stick and the duster. So we all already know about this. We know what is a blackboard and how it is used by teacher. What are the different ways through which the teacher can help the student understand the concept better by using a blackboard? Let us now see what are the basic characteristics of a blackboard. Now that the blackboard is a very common and we all are very aware from our childhood till today's date, we see blackboard being used in the education. But we all might not have ever realized that there are various characteristics that are to be followed while the blackboard is being used or while it is being prepared. Let us now discuss what are those basic characteristics of a blackboard. The first one is the size of the blackboard. Now you all must have noticed the blackboard, no matter where we go, is usually of the same size, right? So there is a recommended size for the blackboard as well, and the recommended size is usually 5 into 6 meter. So let us see, other than the recommended size, what are the different characteristics of a blackboard. So the second one is, as we said in the introduction, that it is a smooth surface, but the surface of the blackboard must not be very smooth, but it must be rough enough so that the chalk can be used on the surface. So the surface of the blackboard must be smooth, but it must also be rough enough to hold the chalk particles while somebody is writing on it. The surface must not be very glaring. It must be dull enough so that the problems in the visibility by the viewers can be avoided. The next characteristic is the surface of the blackboard should be as such that whatever is written on the board can be removed by a cloth or a duster. And the last characteristic is the blackboard must always be placed in such a position which is to the reach of the teacher as well as which makes the visibility for the students easier. So those are the basic characteristics of a blackboard. It must be smooth, but it must be rough enough to hold the chalk particles while we write on it. The surface must not be very glaring. It must be dull so that the problems in the visibility can be avoided. And the blackboard has a recommended size of 5 into 6 meter, and that must be followed. And the last characteristic is it should be mounted in such a height where the teacher can reach for writing or illustrating any kind of diagrams or drawings on the blackboard, and also the visibility by the viewers or the students are clear. Let us move on and discuss about the purposes of using a chalkboard or a blackboard in a classroom. Of course, the first purpose is to make the concept more concrete and realistic. So the teacher uses the blackboard in order to make sure that whatever abstract content is being explained to the students get a concrete idea and have a better understanding about the particular topic. The next purpose is it helps in avoiding many vague statements which can be illustrated through the use of blackboard by drawing, sketching, or direction and summarizing. Now, when the teacher is teaching to a particular class or having difficulty in dealing a particular aspect of the content, the teacher can always use the blackboard in order to clarify vague statements or to make sure that students understand better. Use of the blackboard will always help the teacher to make the concept more clear and realistic. The next purpose is it can also restore the attention of the group or the students in the classroom. So by the use of blackboard, if the students are not listening to the monotonous lecture, the teacher can use the blackboard in order to restore the attention among the students. And if a blackboard is used properly, it can set standards for accuracy, speed, and neatness. The next purpose is it initiates visual learning and helps or enhances the learning process for the students. So as I said, Blackboard is a graphic aid which is used for visual representation of something. It is either for writing a certain thing or also for displaying the drawings or illustrating a particular concept. So through the use of Blackboard, the learning can be enhanced by the teacher for the learners. The next purpose is it can be used as a way of motivating the students as well. It can also be used to record the progress and the status of the students within the classroom. Now, the teacher can use the blackboard in various ways, right? The teacher can use the blackboard to illustrate a certain procedure or a certain process. The teacher can present the facts, principles, or a certain process for the students through the use of Blackboard. The teacher can assign individual responsibilities, write the questions and the answers on the Blackboard for the students. And the teacher can also use for demonstrating or to make graphic demonstrations on the Blackboard or review the entire lesson. So the Blackboard can be used by the teacher in various ways. It can be in order to illustrate a particular diagram. It can be used in order to show or write down a particular question or solve a particular questions for the students. The teacher can also use to demonstrate a particular procedure or to show a certain diagram of a particular concept. There are various ways different teachers can use the Blackboard according to their convenience and what the topic demands. The next purpose is Blackboard can be used by the teacher to pose questions, cite an example of a particular concept or a particular work, or also to list the sources of studies. Now, in nursing, the Blackboard can be used by the teacher to illustrate chart recording, and it can also be used by the nursing students in order to practice the chart recording. The next purpose is the Blackboard can be used to clarify certain abstract statements or also to provide a summary on a particular topic during the phase of recapitalization. The next purpose is it provides a lot of scope for creative and decorative work by the teacher, and if it is used by the students, for the students as well. The next purpose is it helps in starting fresh by rubbing what is written on the blackboard and writing the new concept for the learners. So as we know, in the blackboard, when we use blackboard, whatever is written, whatever is drawn on the board can be removed easily, and we can start fresh to enhance learning. Let us now see what are the guidelines to be followed while using a blackboard or preparing a blackboard. The first guideline is the blackboard is usually made out of a piece of plywood that is about 30 to 40 inch in size, and it is painted with a blackboard paint. So as we have discussed earlier, we have seen that blackboards were originally made out of a slate or a stone that is dark gray in color or black in color. But in this era now, the blackboards are made with piece of plywood which is around 30 to 40 inches in size, and then it is painted with the blackboard paint. Now, when we see today, the blackboard in today's world is made in two different pieces so that it can be moved from one place to another. And once it is taken to the place where it is to be fixed, it is hinged in the middle. The next guideline for the teacher is when the teacher is writing on the blackboard, the teacher should always stand on the side of the blackboard and not exactly in front of the blackboard. Now, of course, when somebody is writing on the blackboard, we should stand on the side so that the viewers can see what is being written by the teacher. The next guideline is the teacher should not turn his or her back towards the audience for a long period of time. So as we know, the blackboard is installed facing the class. So obviously the teacher has to turn back and write down the points or draw a particular drawing. But the teacher should not do that for a long period of time, as there are chances to lose the attention of the students. The next one is the teacher, while writing on the blackboard, should write the letters in large sizes so that it is easily visible for a large group of audience as well. The next guideline is the teacher, while writing on the blackboard, must make sure that there are no spelling mistakes. So the spelling mistakes must be avoided by anyone who's writing on the blackboard. The next guideline is writing should be in a straight row. Of course, when we write in the blackboard, it must be written straight in a particular row. The next guideline is the extreme lower corner of the blackboard must not be used by the teacher to write or to illustrate any kind of diagrams for the students, as it will not be visible for the students who are sitting at the back. The next guideline is the teacher should avoid filling the blackboard with too many words or too many diagrams. So that means the teacher has to use the blackboard in a very neat and organized manner. Crowding it with a lot of words or a lot of figures must be avoided. The next one is if the teacher has to make a complicated drawing, or if the teacher has to write down something very complicated, the teacher must write it on the blackboard before the class starts so that the teacher can save the time while dealing with the students or while taking the particular class. The next guideline is short forms or abbreviations must not be used by the teacher while writing on the blackboard. The next one is colored chalks can be used by the teacher in order to grab the attention of the learners and also to enhance the attraction of the learners. The next one is that the blackboard should never be cleaned with the hands, and a proper eraser must be used in upward and downward motion in order to clean the blackboard. And finally, before leaving the class, the teacher, after using the blackboard, must make sure that the blackboard is properly cleaned before she leaves the class or finishes her particular session. So these are the various guidelines to be followed by the teacher while using the blackboard in the classroom. Let us now see what are the various advantages of using a blackboard in a teaching learning process. The first advantage is that Blackboard is one of the most economical visual aids used in education, and it is reusable. So as we know, once the Blackboard is installed, it is very economical for the organization to use the Blackboard as it is a reusable material. The teacher can write on the Blackboard and rub it off and write a new concept again, or draw a new concept again. So it is reusable, and it is one of the most economical aid that is used in the education anytime. So when we talk about different types of other AV aids, we know that the teacher has to prepare the AV aid. It might take a lot of time for the teacher to prepare the AV aid and to use those AV aids, whereas Blackboard is easily available and it can be used anytime by the teacher. The next advantage is that Blackboard can be used in various different ways. It depends on the creativity of the teacher. From just writing down a particular question to illustrating an entire procedure, there are various ways of using a Blackboard, and it depends on the creativity of the teacher. The next one is it encourages active doing and also visualizing the concept on the part of audience. So the audience will not just be hearing what is being taught, the audience will also be able to visualize the particular concept. It is a supplement to all different types of teaching aid, and if any mistakes are made, it can be erased, right? So in Blackboard, if you write something, if there are any mistakes, and if we draw something and if there's any mistake that we find in the drawing, we can erase it easily. It can be used by the teacher to give notes for the students. So there are various advantages of using a chalkboard or a Blackboard. If anyone writing in the Blackboard does any kind of mistake, it is easily erasable, and it can be used by the teacher in various different ways according to the creativity. Let us now see what are the limitations of using a Blackboard. It cannot preserve any written material. So as we have been saying, as we have been discussing about the advantages, we know that whatever is written in the Blackboard can be erased. So whatever is written in the Blackboard cannot be preserved as a learning resource or a learning material. The next one is it cannot be used for a large group of audience. So the Blackboard cannot be used for a large number of people as the visibility of the Blackboard is less for a large audience. The next one is it interrupts communication. So of course, when the teacher is communicating with the students, if the teacher has to use the Blackboard, it interrupts in the communication that is taking place between the teacher and the students. The next disadvantage is that when a Blackboard is continuously used in a particular classroom, it becomes very smooth and it becomes full of glare, which we have discussed in the guidelines that these are the things to be avoided. It should not be very smooth because we have to write, it has to hold the chalk particles, and it must not be full of glare so that the visibility is increased. But when we use Blackboard for a long period of time, the dullness of the Blackboard slowly fades and the surface becomes very smooth, and it becomes so smooth that sometimes we cannot even write clearly on the Blackboard. It also becomes full of glare, which decreases the visibility for the viewers. The next disadvantage is that it makes the students totally depend on the teacher. So the teacher is the one who's using the Blackboard to explain a particular concept. So when the teacher is only involved in giving the lecture as well as demonstrating a particular procedure, writing it on the Blackboard, the students will be totally dependent on the teacher. And finally, we have the last disadvantage, which is while the teacher writes on the Blackboard, the dust of the chalk powder spreads around and it is inhaled by the teacher as well as the student, which can be dangerous for their health. So to conclude, today we have discussed about what is a graphic aid, what are the different forms of graphic aids, and the most common and the most oldest graphic aid used in the education system, which is chalkboard or a Blackboard. We've seen what is the Blackboard, what are the various purposes of Blackboard, what are the various guidelines to be followed while preparing as well as writing in the Blackboard, and various advantages and disadvantages of using a Blackboard in the teaching learning process. I hope the class was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next session. Thank you and have a great day ahead.